Greetings! So in today's video, I will be taking a look at this bag here, or rather, what's in it. It's a bit big to fit on my table and in the framing of the camera, but it's a bag of 120 alcohol markers from Ohuhu. It's their Honolulu series, and yes, so they came in this beautiful bag, and along with the markers, they kindly sent me a set of fine line drawing pens and a marker pad. So as you can probably figure out already, all of these items are highly compatible together, so I will be using them together to see what's what. Also, I will be sharing a bit of a story time with you guys over some footage of me testing out the markers, the pad, and the fine liners. But first, let's take a look at all this stuff. Since the pad is already in my hands, let's go with this first. So this one is 10 by 7.6 inches, so a bit smaller than your regular letter-sized paper. The paper is 90 pounds or 150 GSM. There's 60 sheets in this pad, and as you can obviously see, it is wire-bound. Now it has this little flap, but underneath you have a beautiful blank cover that I guess you can customize as you wish. And then you have the paper. So the paper is this very, very light gray color that you can see a lot on bleed-proof paper. This is just a page of tests and random scribbles. I also did a few tests on the back to see just how it works with color pencil on top. But yeah, basically I did just a couple of tests to figure out a few things, and obviously so I went ham on the markers on this page, and you flip this single page and there's nothing from that on the other side. The other way around too. The markers that I've had on this page, you don't see them at all on the first page. So I think that's pretty awesome. I quite like this format of marker pad. It is very generous in sheets as well. 60 sheets, that's a lot of room for drawing, and if you can use both sides of the paper, that's really quite impressive. Then we have the fine line drawing pens. So it says that these are smooth, waterproof, fade resistant, quick dry, and don't smear. You get 8 sizes in this, so a brush, a 0.05, which is not exactly the size in millimeter. You have a little conversion chart here. So 0.05 is 0.2 millimeters. Then we have a 0.1, which is 0.25 millimeters, a 0.2, which is a 0.3 millimeter. 0.3 pen is a 0.35 millimeters. And then we have a 0.5, which is a 0.45 millimeters, a 0.7, which is 0.5 millimeters, and finally a size 1, which is a 1 millimeter. It's a lot of numbers. I hope that was not too confusing. So I did a few swatches. I feel like some sizes are very similar, but then again, as we just saw, there's not that much of a difference between some of the sizes. But you get a good selection of pen that go from really fine to much thicker. And also with the brush, you can get a tool that gives you a lot of line variation. And then the bag of markers. So this bag is really well made. It comes with a carrying strap, has a handle on the cover, and then you open it like this, opens up. So I don't know if you can kind of see, it's a bit big, so it's hard to fit, but it has an insert, and it is separated, so you can see perhaps more in the middle here that it's split into 4 sections, which means that it's a whole lot better at keeping the markers, you know, standing upright and not having them go all the way around. So you could easily, if you want to keep these on your desk, you could take out the insert and just have this on your desk. Now, these are markers. With all kinds of marker, the rule of thumb is always to keep them horizontal, so the ink doesn't pool at one end. This insert, as you can see, is not finished to be displayed. These are unfinished seams, but I think it's quite serviceable anyway in this aspect, and not having the bag in the way, if you plan on leaving this on your desk, is a nice feature. With this came quite a few neat things. The markers came with 2 swatch cards that I filled, obviously, but these were provided with the set of markers. Also with the markers you had a few extras, So this is a protective sheet. As it says, if you are coloring on thin paper, please put this pad between your coloring sheets to prevent any bleed through. It's gonna bleed through the first sheet of paper, but at least it's not gonna transfer to the underlying sheet if you're using this protector. And it's very small, it's supple, so it's really easy to carry. Also, there was this guide that came with the set of markers, and it's a really interesting little read. And it's a good reference to if you want to sort of explore the other products that this company offers. Here you have kind of a Q&A section. And then they go through each of their series with the characteristics and the colors available. So it's informative and a good reference as well. And at the very, very end, you have a section in other languages. So you have this here to help you if you're less comfortable with English. So going back to the swatch sheets, this selection of color is interesting. There's a few colors that are really close to one another, like this pale purple, this pastel pink, the cerise one, the dark blush. They're quite similar. This one is perhaps the most different of the four. Same here, you have similar colors with these two dark yellows. These two yellows are fairly similar. So it's not something that really bothers me, but it's something that can perhaps limit your options just a little bit. When I was using the markers on one of my test drawings, I couldn't really find the color I wanted. Of course, I could have layered a bunch of colors to get something closer to what I wanted, but I feel like one of the perks of having so many colors in a set is that you don't have to layer as much. But anyway, still is a great selection. You have a bit of everything. I think I would have loved a more cool yellow, which is not quite present in this set. You get a lot of green colors and some blue-green colors, a bit of blue, quite a few pink, reds, a few oranges, more muted colors that you can have around here, the browns and all that. And then you get a good selection of neutral colors as well, going from warmer neutrals to cooler neutrals. So that's really interesting. You also get what I think is a decent balance of really light colors and really dark colors. Like this blue-gray 3 here is what I would say a really light color. But then you go down here and you have neutral gray 7, which is almost a black color. I did 2 drawings in the sketchbook to try the markers out. I did something that's a bit more in my style of what I usually do, really. So an adventurous cat on adventures in the wilderness. And my impressions of the markers while I was coloring this is that they layer quite well. I had an issue here that I managed to cover, but I first did a layer of the periwinkle kind of color, and then I wanted to add a bit of a gradient in the top to make it a bit more interesting, so I went with a light orange color. Something like the barely beige or salmon pink here. I don't think my technique for blending the color was all that off, but it left some really noticeable marker strokes in the blue ink that was there before. I let it at that, I let it all dry, and then I was like, at this point, what happens if I come back with my sky blue color here and I do a second layer on top? And that managed to make the marks kind of disappear, so I saved it that way. I also did kind of a gradient effect here on the edges, but I think in the green, since these were colors that are closer together, perhaps the effect is not as noticeable. I'm not super familiar with markers. And then I did a second piece. And I was really inspired by this time of the year with the back to school feeling in the air. I know most kids are probably bummed to be going back to school, but I was always so super excited to get back to it and see my friends and have all this new beautiful stationery stuff to bring to school with me. So that's the drawing that's going to turn into a bit of a story time as I reminisce about some of this stuff. Now, if I had been able to get these markers when I was a kid in school, I would have been so mind blown by the whole idea. Back when I was in school, there weren't as many really awesome art supplies available, or if there were, it really wasn't as it is now, and I'm always impressed when I see everything that's available nowadays. So, as you can probably see from this little drawing, I went to school in the 90s. That's quite some time ago. Back then, computers were just about getting into schools, and we would do the game with the turtle where you had to input some directive and the turtle would do some geometrical drawing on the screen if you entered right. Of course, no phones, no cell phones. Back then, if you had a wireless phone, that was already impressive. And those were the big bricks, you know? So, yeah, I mean, no, the most technological thing we might have with us was a calculator, which gives you an idea. So that's meant to be me. And some of the things that I remember from going to school. Now, I don't really remember all of the manuals we had for all the various classes. I remember really struggling in maths until one day I suddenly understood maths. And from then on, I was fine. But I had issue with the music classes. Now, the way things were set up here, you had mandatory music classes. And I was one of the kids that was awful with it. I was never able to read the notes on sheet music. I was never able to follow up. I would just like play the few notes I knew by heart, and then I would put down my stupid recorder and just listen to the other kids who were actually quite good. And the teacher was kind of at a loss for what to do with me. Then what else is on there? This is what we call here a becherel. It's a guide to use for how to work verbs in French. We had some little notebooks that here are called Cahiers Canada, basically Canada notebooks, and it's really written Canada on them, and you have a map of Canada. Of course, a lock for your locker, some highlighters, the old kind of highlighters, a protractor, I think. And then we have like binders. These are called duotang. They're just like a folder, and in the middle you would have this thing where you could attach some loose leaf paper. A spiral notebook, glue, pencil case, ruler, mechanical pencil, eraser. Of course, my favorite supply was always the box of colored pencils. Now, when I was in school a long time ago, we still had the Prismacolor Canadiana, I think, and barrel pencils, and these were all made here in Canada, and they were amazing. They were just lovely, and every time I would see that on the school list you had to get colored pencils, I would always like cross my fingers and hope that I was due for a new set, and that my parents wouldn't just go, "Oh, you can use the set from last year," you know? Because, oh, this was my favorite thing to get. Usually it was the box of 60 colors, and they always made me so happy. All right, so this is some of them. You can see here, I have one. So my parents, with every new set of pencils, they would use a blade to remove a chunk of the lacquer and the wood, and they would put my initials there. And they had to do this with every single pencil in the box. Because if something was on a school list, that means most kids would have it exactly the same. So how do you figure out whose pencil it is if it's not labeled in some way? Other thing about this, and perhaps some of you will remember those boxes, but the cardboard boxes that were a sliding cover that was split in the middle. And the whole thing about these, I don't think I drew it right, but it was that you could slide it off halfway, fold it back, and then slide it back down, and it would serve as a stand. It would hold the box of pencils somewhat upright so that you could just grab them and pencil, but it would systematically always get worn out and just collapse. And sometimes you would try to grab your box of pencil and you would grab it by the sleeve and all the pencil would fall. And I'm always nostalgic for that time of the year because that was my favorite part of it. The classes themselves, not that much. Seeing my friends, yeah, that was good. But getting to get some new supplies and to break them in, oh, that was the best part. Opening a notebook for the first time and writing like on that line at the top and inevitably making a mess of it and then sort of ruining the experience. But oh, it was always so good. Everything was nice and crisp, and it hadn't spent like a few days forgotten at the bottom of your backpack and then gotten all folded and bent and broken. It was so important to me that I would sometimes get up at night to check if I had everything in my pencil case. So yeah, I don't know how school is today. If you went to school either before or after the 90s, I would love to read your experience in the comments, honestly. A lot of things have changed. I mean, this is 30 years ago, so yeah, a lot has changed in 30 years. I hope that some of this spirit has stayed, that there are still kids who are really excited about getting new supplies. And I mean, doubly excited because now they can get stuff like this marker set that's really affordable and really nice. Like when I was a kid in school, markers were Crayola markers. You didn't have options. And to see everything that's available today, I think that would be so inspiring and so good for the creativity. Let's go back to the markers for a second. How did I enjoy working with these supplies? Personally, now, as a much older person, I had a really fun time. I love the markers. They layered well, like in my other drawing especially. I was able to do so many layers in some areas, and it doesn't make for a really weird effect on this paper. So this is a very unique paper, keep in mind, and I am not that familiar with it, so there might be things that I'm not doing right and I don't know, but I really like the paper. I like how smooth it is. I like that nothing bleeds. Really nothing bleeds, so you can use both sides of the paper, which is great if you're learning how to use these like I am, because that gives you a whole lot more space to experiment. If I had to make a little constructive comment on this set, is that I'm not 100% sold on the color array of the set. I like it, but there are a couple of things that if I could switch out some markers, I know what kind of marker I would replace them with. But also this is about just a third of the colors available. So of course I'm not gonna get every color. There are twice as many out there. And yeah, they worked well. I loved using them on this paper, like I said. And I really like the Fineliners too. They have an excellent flow, they didn't skip. There is one little thing that I noticed in just a few places as I was using the markers over my lines, is that very occasionally the Fineliner's ink will smudge just a little bit when using the markers on top. It happened here with the eye, and also here with one of the little detail dots. It's nothing really important or problematic, but both times I was a bit surprised to see that happen. Now, perhaps I didn't let the ink dry long enough, or perhaps I should just use a spare sheet of paper just to press on my inked drawing before using the markers on top, just in case some ink is not quite as dry as it seems. But that's really the only thing I saw. Otherwise, everything worked really well together. I didn't have any issue. So what's my final take on these? Would I recommend these supplies? I really enjoyed them. I think I've made that kind of clear in my video, and they were a lot of fun to use. I love the paper here. I love paper that doesn't bleed through, that doesn't ghost through either. It's one of my main pet peeve regarding paper, so this scores a lot of point in my book. Like the Fineliners, they work really well. The markers are really good too. I love the fact that they have a brush tip. I know they also have a chisel tip, but I never use this. Much preferred this, the brush tip. They work really well. The packaging, the bag they come in with the insert that has separator, the swatch cards, the sheet protector, all the info you get. I mean, I think this is a set that is friendly for everyone and also quite affordable, so that's an extra good feature. If you feel like this is too many markers for you, they have smaller sets as well. If you feel like this is not enough markers for you, they have larger sets as well. And I think you can combine sets and complete your collection of markers gradually this way. I'm very happy to showcase these markers and other supplies at this time of year because right now Ohuhu is having their back to school sale, so it would be a really good moment to get some of these new, really awesome supplies for the start of the new school year. I'll have all the links and all the info in the description below, so check it out if you want to go see that sale for yourself. Again, thank you so much, Ohuhu, for sending me these supplies. I really appreciate it. These were really fun to play with. What do you think of these supplies? I would love to read your thoughts in the comments, and also I would love to read your school stories in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you, Ohuhu, for sending me these markers and the pad and the Fineliners. I really like them, and I'm looking forward to using them more. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.